Hoki mai anō. There's a warning from the New Zealand Asian community. Racism is rising and needs to be stopped before there's a tragic repeat of the Christchurch terrorist attack or the Atlanta Spa shootings. Anna Bracewell-Worrell with this report.
A car pulled up and started throwing beer bottles at me and calling me racial slurs.
Every single day, pull their eyes back and say Ching Chong Chinese.
I had an incident where someone threatened to kill me, and it was very specific as to how he was going to kill me.
The woman come out and pointing at me, go back to China, like that.
All of these people have been told to go home. They are home, even if sometimes it doesn't feel that way. Steph Haihui Tan went to school in Auckland. Trying to fit in with predominantly Pākehā classmates meant rejecting her mother's homemade lunches.
My mum would make me an incredible lunch of Chinese food, and people would smell it and say, that's smelly, disgusting Chinese food.
Racism followed her as she grew up.
You're cool foreign Asian, or you're hot or good-looking foreign Asian. Do you see us on a different spectrum? How do you view our physical appearance?
The effect? Battling with an internalised feeling of being less than.
It's very embedded, and you start to believe that you genuinely are inferior.
It can mean withdrawing from society.
It can also mean saying, hey, I'm really Kiwi, and so I'm going to distance myself from my family, their traditions, from a foreign accent. It might even mean using racial discrimination against members of your own ethnic group, making fun of their accent, that kind of thing.
There's a long history of anti-Chinese racism. From 1881 until 1944, Chinese migrants faced a steep tax to enter New Zealand. Ships could only bring in one Chinese migrant for every 10 tonnes of cargo.
That dehumanization of the subordinate worker makes them a more obvious foreigner, right? And sometimes that foreigner can fit in, but if the international circumstances change, all of a sudden it's real easy to take a dehumanized group and turn them into a threat.
That's what happened when COVID-19 emerged from Wuhan. Further exacerbated by the former US president obsessed with blaming China for the pandemic, drumming up anti-China rhetoric.
Nation's going to defeat this terrible China virus. Kung flu. The China virus, as I call it, because it came from China. The United Nations must hold China accountable for their actions.
When people in positions of authority mainstream racist ideas and mainstream racist rhetoric like that, it emboldens people and it makes people feel like it's okay to say those things.
Figures released by the Human Rights Commission in February found 44% of Chinese New Zealanders feel unsafe due to blame for COVID-19. 54% experienced racism since the outbreak. 20% of those people hadn't experienced it before COVID-19. In March last year, at the height of COVID concerns, a stranger sprayed a cleaning product on Francesco Hernandez at an Auckland mall.
I have no idea what it was because I didn't confront him or anything. It was soapy, for sure.
These Asian New Zealanders, their experiences of racism were front of mind on Tuesday when awful news broke from Atlanta. A mass shooting targeting spas.
The killings happened amid a surge of hate crimes against Asian Americans.
8 people killed at 3 different locations, 6 of them of Asian descent. It struck home in Auckland.
I think that could have been my mother, my sister.
Around the US, groups rallied to support the Asian community. In Auckland, Tan organised a march for Saturday.
I don't see these events as just isolated lone wolves, extremists. We as a society breed this extreme behaviour because of what we normalise just on a day-to-day basis. It's those everyday little comments, such as go back to China, Ching Chong, horrible slurs like that. That is what normalises to the extremists that we are a vulnerable group that deserves to be targeted.
Muslim communities warned police of rising racism before the Christchurch terror attacks. They felt unheard. Tan's issuing a similar warning. It could happen again against the Asian community.
We don't want it to get bad enough that some horrific extreme event has to happen before we pay attention.
Race Relations Commissioner Meng Foon has escalated concerns about a copycat event as well.
Authorities really need to be alert.
Other groups are on the alert too. Paparua monitors online hate. It says anti-Chinese sentiment is rising, especially among anti-vaccine and anti-lockdown movements. Police can record whether crimes are motivated by hate, but hate crime is not an offence in and of itself. Tan wants that changed so that assaults motivated by hate carry a heavier sentence.
And adding that into policy here really symbolises that we cannot see each other as complete different people.
But mostly, she just wants New Zealand to do better.
In our pandemic response, it doesn't help blaming anyone and being racist to anyone. It's simply racist. What we need to do is come together and support one another to keep each other safe.
Stay with us. We're back.